An inexperienced pet parent once said, "Diabetic dogs are dying dogs." How true is this statement? Is that diabetic dog only going to be around for a short while? Knowing your dog is diabetic, should you start preparing for the dark days? Well, veterinary science has done tremendously well at solving these riddles. Canine parents now realize that if their dogs are diagnosed with diabetes, it is not a death sentence. As a pet parent, coping with these kinds of dogs is not a stroll in the park. Nonetheless, it can certainly be handled. While this is not the sort of news you want to hear, there is no absolute cure for diabetes. However, the condition is treatable. As with many kinds of health complications, treatment is easier, especially when it is detected early. Considering this, pet parents must refrain from the fire brigade approach. Do not make visits to the vets only when complications arise. These checkups can even help prevent the chances of diabetes in a dog. This is because diabetes does not happen out of the blues. It usually kicks off with milder adverse effects, as it is a gradual process. If the symptoms are noted and readdressed early, you may never have to cope with such conditions. So, point blank, diabetic dogs are not necessarily dying dogs. With the needed treatments and measures, your precious diabetic canine buddy can live to full old age. In coping with a diabetic dog, 3 things are important. 1. The right nutrition. 2. The right exercise. 3. The right treatment. Particularly, this video will discuss the nutritional part of coping with a dog with diabetes. For pet parents who may also be asking the question, what human food can I feed my diabetic dog, you are in the right place. Discussing human food alternative for diabetic dogs is very important. This is because humans and dogs do not share similar dietary requirements. As a matter of fact, some human meals contain toxins that are harmful to dogs. Examples of such can be found with chocolate, grapes, salted meals, among others. But first things first, how do you cope with a diabetic dog? The most effective way to treat or complicate the diabetic dog's condition is through feeding. It is important that diabetic dogs are exposed to the right meals. Appropriate feeding is very important in his overall progress. Considering this, there are special commercial food products available for diabetic dogs. However, if you are up for keeping a close eye on your dog, you may have to make his meals yourself. Although time-demanding and stressful, this act comes with a myriad of benefits. The major advantage is born out of meeting the nutritional peculiarities of that dog. So, what human food can you feed your diabetic dog? 1. The pasta and chicken recipe. Dogs love eating fleshy kinds of stuff. However, their love for chicken is inexplicable. They cannot get enough of the 2-legged creature. This recipe is great for your dog considering its high fiber. The items needed for this recipe are 1. Pasta. 2. Chicken. 3. Calcium phosphate. 4. Carrot. 5. Corn oil. 6. Salt. Let's go over the procedures for making this sumptuous dog food. Step 1. You can make your choice from the available kinds of pasta around you. Spaghetti and macaroni are great options. Start by parboiling the pasta. Considering that it is for your dog, the pasta doesn't have to be very soft. You can allow the pasta steam for around 6 to 12 minutes, as that should soften the pasta. After cooking the pasta, sieve it into a clean bowl and move to the next step. Step 2. Cut the chicken into sizes convenient for your dog to eat. Boil the chicken for no more than 20 minutes. Step 3. You can use a special canned carrot for this part. You are to cut the carrot before boiling them. However, we prefer to boil a couple of fresh carrots. At about 4 minutes, you should turn off the heat. Step 4. Pour out a reasonable amount of pasta into a bowl. Afterward, add around 1/4 cup of chicken. Next, add the cooked fresh carrot. 2 large-sized carrots should be enough. At this point, you should mix the 3 items together. Next, add between half to 1 tablespoon of corn oil. The smell and taste of corn oil are very appealing to dogs. Afterward, you should add no more than 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. With a dog having diabetes, you need to cut down on salt. This is considering how it can increase blood pressure. Next, you should add 1 teaspoon of calcium phosphate. Mix the entire ingredients again and you can serve your canine buddy. To save you the stress, you can prepare this recipe in large amounts and store it up in the refrigerator. In airtight containers, the recipe can stay up to 4 days. Also, do not give your dog hot meals. Make sure it has cooled off a bit before serving. Let's share one more human-inclined dog recipe. 2. The brown rice and chicken recipe. The items you will need for this recipe are 1. Brown rice. 2. Chicken. 3. Green beans. 4. Calcium phosphate. 5. Salt. This recipe requires some actual cooking. The goal is to serve your dog a very moist and soft sumptuous meal in the end. So, let's go over how to prepare the rice and chicken recipe. Step 1. After cutting the chicken to convenient sizes for your dog, boil it for around 15 minutes. We advise that you do not make it too soft. This is because you will still have it heated when mixing it with other items. Step 2. Soak about 1½ cup of rice in water and wash very well. The essence of washing the rice is to do away with excess starch. Especially for diabetic dogs, this should be taken seriously. After draining the water, cook it in about 2 cups of water for 20 minutes. After that, add the initially cooked chicken. Let the mixture of rice and chicken simmer for about 3 to 5 minutes. Step 3. Haven added the major ingredients, you can add other items. These items include the green beans, corn oil, calcium phosphate, salt, and probably freshly cut carrot. The measure of these items is very important. You should add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Any more than this is not ideal considering the dog's condition. You do not want to complicate the situation, so cut down on salt. The corn oil can be about 1 tablespoon. The smell is very nice and makes the meal appealing to your dog. The greens should be about 1/2 cup. Considering that this is a luxury, the quantity is up to you. For the calcium phosphate, you can make do with 1 teaspoon. After all of this, mix the ingredients and allow it to simmer for another 10 to 13 minutes. Next, turn off the heat. What you will have is a meal that accommodates a lot of moisture, which is an achieved goal. You will have to drain the watery meal, as well as allow it to cool off before serving. You can also cook this meal in large quantity and store it up in an airtight container. If kept in the refrigerator, this meal can stay up to 4 days. How about the measure of meal to be served? Large-sized dogs eat more than small-sized ones. You can use the size as a yardstick for serving the meal. Generally, serve 1 cup of food for every 40 pounds your canine buddy weighs. For instance, if you have a small-sized dog weighing 20 pounds, you should serve around 1/2 cup of food. Up till now, we have spent a great deal of time explaining helpful recipes for diabetic dogs. Often, diabetes kicks off as a gradual process. It can be curbed if discovered and treated early enough. The earlier it is encountered, the better for both dog and human companion. This is also to save you further complications. For example, dogs that are not treated early enough can have sight defects. This could be partial or absolute blindness. How about the kinds of canine diabetes? There are different types of dog-inclined diabetes, but more often, dogs usually get type 1 diabetes. Let's look at signs that could mean your dog is diabetic or requires prompt attention to avoid being one. 1. Increased thirst. Is your dog gulping more water? Is your dog beginning to act dehydrated most times? These are signs you should not take with a pinch of salt. To be certain there is no cause for alarm, visit the vet for a urine and blood test. 2. Frequently urinating. The key is having an idea of the dog's usual habits. If you are not in the know of how much your dog urinates, it will be hard to tell if it's irregular. If your dog is always peeing, sometimes having to use the convenience outside, you should go for a checkup. This is a sign you should not ignore. This is also because it could mean other complications other than diabetes. 3. Increased longing for food. If your dog has an increased longing for food, you should pay attention to this sign. This is especially if the increased appetite is not reflecting in his size. This is one of the most profound signs among diabetic dogs. Considering this, the solution is not always deworming. Make sure that your dog's increase in appetite is not a health complication. This is especially if your dog has not been exercising frequently. If your dog is showing weight loss despite eating more, do not throw caution to the wind. Act fast. If you have more than one dog, this requires that you are extra attentive. This is because you might not be sure which dog is eating more. We suggest you do not serve their meals in the same bowl. This is an important step in assessing your dog's eating habits. As our furry companions get old, they become more susceptible to health complications. This is because their immune system is not as active as at the earlier stage. Such problems can manifest in the form of arthritis, cancer, irregular heart conditions, dog diabetes, among others. Considering this, dog parents whose canine buddies are in this stage should be up and doing. They should pay more attention to the signs. Regardless of these complications and the stress attached, being a pet parent is an amazing thing. In that light, we should do the required, so our dogs can live happy and healthy lives. Raw and homemade meals are better at helping diabetic dogs thrive. Considering this, you might want to put in time and effort at preparing meals for your dog. In this video, we have shared 2 examples of easy-to-prepare recipes for such dogs. Having these kinds of dogs means you would make some drastic decisions. For instance, you may have to rule out dry food and unhealthy treats. This is because the conventional treats and dry food may not be healthy for your dog. As a result, if you must give your dog treats, it should be healthy. You can play around safe human-inclined options such as carrots, watermelon, apples, among others. Most importantly, cut down on salty meals. As earlier stressed, diabetic dogs are not dying dogs. While this condition is not curable, it is manageable. With the right nutrition, treatment, and exercise, your canine companion can still live a healthy life. If you've enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you'll know once we post a new video. Also, drop a comment below so we can know your thoughts. Finally, don't forget to check the description below for more details and visit our site www.zimdogfood.com for more awesome dog food content like this.